despite this dual use restriction, tell us that to implement capacity building and technology transfer, it will be necessary to establish robust value chains for marine technology at regional and/or local levels. Let's talk about the Brazilian contribution. Brazil has important facilities with wind tunnels, towing tanks, a huge ocean basin, a subsea technology laboratory with different hyperbaric chambers, a lab with a tank for calibration, acoustic hydrophones, among others. Is researching, developing, and prototyping different types of metocean instruments, AUVs, USVs, and has manufacturers of metocean buoys, AUVs that operate in conjunction with ROVs and aerodrones. Our Brazilian oil company is five-time winner of the OTC Offshore Technology Conference Innovation Award, the main technology award in ocean and gas industry. We develop, construct, operate satellites, but despite all of this, Brazil does not have a well-organized and structured ocean instrumentation robotics sector. We need to go beyond this. Finally, what's going on this sector that I named ocean instrumentation robotics? In 2016, OECD, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, published the Ocean Economy in 2030 report. This report presents a series of recommendations to promote the sustainable development of the ocean economy, such as foster great international cooperation in marine science and technology, strengthen integrated ocean management, build more capacity for ocean industry foresight, and most relevant for our discussion, the OECD includes high-tech marine products and service sectors as a key emerging economic sector for 2030. Following this, several initiatives were launched in the developed countries, such as the Ocean Enterprise Initiative, Marine Technology Society program, collaborate with the GOOS, the Global Ocean Observing System, NOAA, and other industry partners. And they segmented the marine market in observing technology, observations, data, and information delivery. Start to measure the ocean enterprise impact value. For example, in USA, in 2020, there were 800 US business activities with 325,000 employment, and the revenue was $8 billion. And they promote discussions, which they call dialogue of industry, highlighting, among other topics, cost-effective sensors, accessible technologies, and low-cost ocean technologies. Another initiative is the European Union Blue Economy Observatory. In 2024, created the economy sector called Infrastructure and Robotics, which encompasses submarine cables, marine robotics, and other technological applications for blue economy activities. And the US Bureau of Economic Analysis, in partnership with NOAA, have been developing statistical prototypes to measure the ocean's contribution to the US gross domestic product, which is not clearly visible in the standard national accounts framework. So I mentioned all these to emphasize that BBNJ parties, in order to contribute to the agreement, Part 5, capacity building and the transfer of marine technology objectives, need to start, preferably now, thinking about strategies, policies, and sustainable investment that will allow us to have high-tech marine products and services accessible and disseminated globally. And finally, remembering my later brother, who loved to say, a chain is only as strong as its weakest link. Thank you.
First, you keep on track. You were, yes, less than 8 minutes. But thank you, Fabio. As you mentioned, well, there was a lot of name of technology that I need to learn about. I was taking note here, but it's quite new for me. But as you mentioned, one specific point is the necessity of have in Brazilian level to have an ocean instrumentation center. INPO is quite working on that, so maybe we're on a pathway to get to be a more sending our technology to other countries that may need, but also to reinforce our national capacity and also capacity building in ourselves. So that's one way. And as you mentioned also, so there is a lot of structures that we have and some others that we still need to build. And from that, I'll bring pass to you, Julia, that have been working so close to the BBNJ since the negotiation and now the implementation. So do you see any, we're gonna have some binding, legal binding actions that the countries will need. Sorry. And from that, maybe we need to think about another way of structure of the governance, or how we can think about the BBNJ in a national level to deliver what is necessary. So bring your comments to us. Thank you.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for inviting me to be here, Leandro. I also thank you, like Ocean Voices, for sponsoring me to be here, and of course, Andre and all the organizers for to build this beautiful event here in Brazil. Okay, so we have the exciting part, the diplomacy. We have the relevance, the scientific one, and let's go to the annoying one, like legal implications, okay? Well, it's a pity that Luciana Coelho is not here because she's also a legal scholar working on capacity building and tech transfer, so she could help me in this moment. So thinking about for legal implications in this compliance between national and international level, I've been thinking quite long and about that. And the first thing, for example, Brazil, we already have our clearinghouse mechanism, which call CISGEM, and it's a pity that Henri Novion is not here to help us with that. But how we can look at our national platform and link that or build the BBNJ CHM through that. So how to connect our national clearinghouse to the international one. More than that, do we need some updates for our national clearinghouse? Because we know that our clearinghouse is based on the national biodiversity law. But then our researchers should do compliance in the CISGEM, but also go there, or there is somehow can we connect them and do like an easy link for them to work? Because, for example, thinking about us, you know, as researchers, there are so many databases that we need to fulfill sometimes. So there is the technology can help us to link and use just one platform to do all the work. And also, Brazil has been thinking that we can go by ourselves, or these will be through a focal or a national focal point. This is also like some questions that I've been thinking, especially when we look at to the Article 12 and all the notifications that we need to fulfill. So thinking as a Brazilian, so there will be amendments in our law or not. There will be amendments in our policies or not, and how we can harmonize that. So if we look at to our databases, there are so many. We can, for example, me, like as a researcher, I need to fulfill some requirements of CAPES. It's our, like, the problem is like the translation, okay? Coordination of improvement of higher educational personnel. Or for example, if I am part of INPO, they also have a database for researchers. So, hope so. And if you look at, for example, Comandante Borba is here, like the Brazilian Navy also have in English, the National Oceanographic Data Bank, BNDO. So all this data, all this information related to research groups, of researchers, and all the initiatives related to capacity building and tech transfer, how we can connect all of them and make them work really well to fulfill the requirements of BBNJ. And to be honest, I think like to fulfill the clearinghouse mechanism of BBNJ and all the requirements we have. So I have one slide. I don't know if we can project. Okay, so some of you already saw that. But when we start thinking how we can connect everything and make part 5 implementable, and this is like a framework that I developed somehow, built on the marine technology concept that we have, like Article 1, paragraph 10. So when I look at the definition and I think about how implement part 5, I just start, like kind of a lot of tabs like open in my mind. And it's not only because, for example, I don't have your expertise, a scientific one, and you also need to comply with the legal implications, like the legal part. So I think that maybe we could look at to that and start like rethinking how we can have some structure to implement part 5. So for example, I have all those databases. Which one have been working with manuals, guidelines, and so on? Some of them, some initiatives are related to facilities. Some of them is related to only like equipments, ocean observation, and so on. So maybe if we can frame somehow, coming from the definition, we can help the governments to implement part 5. And it's quite interesting because during negotiations, there was a moment that people was trying to avoid this standalone part. Why we need like part 5 itself, and why we don't have, like through the other parts, provisions related to capacity building and tech transfer. And there was a moment that, especially like legal scholars saying, well, if you have a standalone part, we can highlight the importance and the relevance for that as means of implementation. I don't know, like, who were attending, for example, the last BBNJ symposium, and for me it was quite interesting because every single panel highlighted the importance of capacity building and tech transfer, but none said how we can implement that. Well, maybe I'm being too mean right now. None. Like some maybe, where is Bupi? Bupi's here? Bupi probably gave some ideas, but I think this is a moment that we start like thinking to build some frameworks, some methodologies, and to look at our national databases, platforms, researchers, and everything, and try to link all of them and to do this implementation. And if we don't, I think we will come back, because if you look at UNCLOS negotiations work, they highlight the importance, but if you talk about implementation of part 13 and 14, Now we have like BBNJ as, a milestone to change. I hope we cannot come back with the, well, we did some, but we still under-implemented thing. So this is just like a first thought, food for thought. And I don't know what you think about it, but I'm completely open to discuss and to engage with you all, especially when we think about tech transfer not as something not related to capacity building, but something as a step of capacity building. So this is just like my first thoughts for the moment, and I hope some questions to talk with you all. Thank you again.
Thank you, Julia. And yes, I think that Brazil could export our clearinghouse mechanism. I'm counsel of the CIGEN, so I'm quite a fan of the system, and we're quite advancing on. And even that we have a lot of data, we have I think that two main objectives: to how to interoperate them. That's one way. But also we need more data, because everything that I listen from the science is always, we need to look more, we need to learn more, we need to collect more data. So even this, we have a lot of work to do. And all of this is only possible with cooperation. So the legal needs to cooperate with the science, that needs to cooperate with government to go on. And also when you look at international level, we need to cooperate to really implement the BBNJ. And to bring a perspective from the international collaboration, I would invite Leonardo to bring us your comments regarding emerging ocean technologies, and based on your experience, if there are global initiatives related to ocean-based climate solutions that are currently the main research fronts level or technology maturity, and perhaps even the controversies surrounding emerging ocean technologies. So, and even that we have some controversial technologies, we need also always to look at the climate justice and geographic inclusiveness. So how can we ensure that development and sharing of such technologies is scientifically robust, environmentally safe, and socially equitable? Leonardo, please.
Okay, sorry. Thank you, Leandro. And let me see if the presentation can go up. Yeah, perfect. Thanks a lot. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I'm so sorry that I cannot be there, but I want to thank the Ministry of Science and Technology for the invitation for the event today. I'm Leonardo Valenzuela Perez. I'm from Chile. I represent here Ocean Visions, an organization that's working to accelerate responsible research and development for exactly what Leandro was saying, emerging ocean climate technologies, solutions for climate and ocean recovery. So today, I want to briefly discuss how international cooperation and scientific capacity building can help governing emerging, or could help govern emerging marine technologies, and why the BBNJ agreement creates an important opportunity, given the current landscape of regulations, to strengthen their governance. So let me first, I want to tell you a little bit about like where I am speaking from. So Ocean Visions is a nonprofit organization, independent nonprofit organization that coordinates a global network that connects science, technology, and policy, as well as investment institutions, to figure out solutions to the interlocked crisis of ocean and climate. So we see them as like highly interconnected. And this is part of a global effort to accelerate the translation of all capacity to be able to respond to this crisis in time. So our network includes universities, research institutions, NGOs, and also other innovation partners that are working together in this endeavor. And they are at the moment mostly focus or was emerged out of a coalition in North America, but we're quickly growing into like a global institution. So a key initiative that we are leading is in collaboration with the UN Ocean Decade. It's a global ecosystem for ocean solutions called GEOS in this space, which is a program that brings together more than 40 institutions, all very diverse, from across 6 continents. And they're all working on multiple dimensions, not just exclusively developing a technology, but multiple dimensions on how to advance this space of emerging ocean climate technologies. So the aim of GEOS is to connect scientific capacity. It's already in this collaborative framing, advance policy dialogues around this interactions between science and policy, and also to support innovation ecosystems across diverse geographies with a strong focus in the Global South. We do this through a network of regional innovation hubs, and also the design of partnerships with all these different institutions. So the goal that we have is to strengthen scientific and institutional capacity required for the evaluation, testing, and governance of emerging technologies in a coordinated, iterative, and responsible way. So this type of experiment, we see it as an experiment, is quite important right now, given the scale of the challenges that we're facing. So that is just to get an introduction into the next problem, which is that right now, like most climate models right now show that limiting warming under like below 2 degrees Celsius is increasingly relying on very large volumes of carbon dioxide removal. So this is in addition to accelerated decarbonization effort. It's not an alternative. It's not that you choose between one or the other. But we are facing a very fundamental paradox here, which is that the models are relying on these future negative emissions technologies, so carbon removal technologies, at a scale that does not yet exist, and we are nowhere near where we should be for this to really have an impact. And most of the efforts around these technologies, and particularly on the marine front, remain quite limited. And I would say, and this is one of our perspectives on this, out of a lack of support from the public sector to understand them in more detail. So this has created a major scientific and governance challenge. So some of these approaches could help mitigate climate impacts, but they are also raising concerns, all very legitimate concerns around environmental, social issues, and they should all be very carefully evaluated. So what we are referring here, and I will just go into one specific technology to your question, Leandro, about what is kind of promising, advanced, but also very much on many people's mind right now. It's marine carbon dioxide removal, and these are a family of approaches. These are not yet standardized technologies, and this is an important connection to the BBNJ discussion. And these processes intend to enhance natural processes to remove CO2. And the issue with MCDR is that, yeah, they try to enhance these processes from a geological scale to kind of more short-term scales, and this follows the fact that the ocean is already working as a buffer against climate impact. However, that buffering has increased the acidity of ocean acidification in the ocean, and also the warming in the ocean has acted as a driver or is inflicting pressure on marine ecosystems. So this is creating a vicious cycle. So MCDR aims to increase the ocean capacity to safely absorb and store carbon. That's the goal, and potentially helping like slow climate change and acidification, and also their impacts on marine ecosystems. So some examples, and then here in that figure you can see some of those, include ocean alkalinity enhancement, electrochemical forms of carbon removal, microalgae cultivation, and biomass sinking. So as I said, all of those early research stages, but for them to work, we will need to act very fast to see if they have a merit. So robust scientific assessment and monitoring capacity will be essential for any meaningful progress for these technologies at scale. Now, this leads to a matter of governance on the side of biodiversity as well. So as I was saying, there is a problem with the impact of climate change on biodiversity. So we understand that the continued pressure coming from climate change will cause major disruptions in marine ecosystems and ecosystems at large, and those will have a negative impact on those ecosystems' capacity, like resilience, and also their contributions to climate change. So it's all quite interrelated. In some cases, it has been seen that some of these technologies, and I'm not trying to speak about this in terms of that it's absolutely needed to do things in a certain way, but what we need to understand is that we need to develop certain forms of like decision tools that would allow us to understand what is the trajectory and the losses that we will have in terms of ecosystems, and compared to what are the uncertainties and risks associated with this potential new intervention. So a very huge governance problem right now that brings together all these problems of like scientific capacity, infrastructure, and collaboration is that we need to understand how to compare those risks. So how the current trajectory with the current methods for decarbonization are performing, and what are the expectations around those, and what could be positive or additional out of those different new like emerging technologies. So this is where where we see that there could be like the BBNJ could have something new to say regarding this landscape of regulations and internationally, and the gap that we are seeing. And sorry that I have to move this a little bit, is that we are dealing with the fact that there are a problem of coherence between the mandates of different framings that were not built to respond specifically to the challenges that we're facing now, and they did not consider technologies of the characteristics and size of, for example, marine carbon dioxide removal. So we are facing fragmented institutions, uneven scientific capacity, which is part of this persistent issue of underinvestment, particularly in ocean sciences. Africa is a very good example of that, and it's an area where we have been expanding work for these collaborations, and very limited cooperation for all sorts of reasons, but also because there are like no clear incentives associated to it. So where we see that there could be some important contributions coming out of BBNJ, and where this could be a catalyst, and this goes back to, we're not dealing here with standardized technologies. What BBNJ does is like working with what is established. However, those established systems could help like through capacity building, technology transfer, and scientific cooperation, could create the opportunities for like a framework that would enable the assessment of these different technologies in a coordinated way, would allow for more transparency, and will ensure at the end of the day that we are like dealing with things that are manageable and sufficiently safe. So that's a major problem to address. So at the end of the day, through the different mechanisms of cooperation, and given that we are seeing now, for example, what's happening with like how one technology is considered UNFCCC, how it goes to CBD, and how it goes to London Protocol and Convention, they could have a different framing. We think that in this like kind of new treaty, there are opportunities to offer some coordination mechanisms for it, and to also build the international kind of global scientific community that is capable of making these assessments, capable of monitoring, like advanced more monitoring in the ocean, and really just offer models for the rest of the governance space. So, and this has been highlighted by like some publications, and I will refer you to Miranda Butcher, refer you to what Romani Webb and Will Byrne have written about this as emergent opportunities coming out of this. And what I want to emphasize before closing is that what like to the issue of like the emergent part in all of this means that this is all in a process of transition. So we have not achieved like a technology that we can say, okay, this is already working. And the efforts right now are limited. We need to do a lot more to advance the capacities, to advance both the technology and the capacity to govern the technologies at the moment. And probably a lot of the considerations around equity and justice should be placed there. So how to do this in a way that doesn't affect anybody in a way that is unfair, but also how we can ensure that like different parties, different governments can both benefit and be part of the process of governing these technologies in a somewhat equal footing. I think that is one of the major concerns here. So at the end of the day, the challenge with these emerging technologies and the like, fears around some of these pieces is not necessarily entirely a technological problem or a scientific problem. I think it's to a great extent an institutional issue. So we need to develop institutional capacity to be able to understand this better and govern it better. And yeah, and they will definitely require collaboration, research, like building global research capacity, and a coordinated system of governance and decision making, like a framework that is adequate. And BBNJ could be a place to develop a good part of that aspect. So I think the most important message here to the point of what role the Part 5 plays in all of this is that it could become a model for the assessment of these technologies that could have positive impacts for climate and for biodiversity, and do it in a way that is kind of fit for purpose. That's I think very important concept in this case, and could reach, given the fact that we are talking about areas beyond national jurisdictions, could allow for an understanding that is more coherent of the problems that we are facing, and provide models of governance that could enhance the coherence in the other frameworks that are dealing with these issues. So, and in particular, I will say the ones coming out of the Rio Convention and the ones like the London Convention and Protocol that is currently trying to find a way to manage this in a better way. So I will leave it there. I hope this was not too long, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Leonardo. A lot of information, a lot of learning about new technologies. Good to know that we are in a transition moment, so I hope that we have the decisions tools, as you mentioned, and we have the technology with the capacity of scaling up as soon as possible, just to keep you all awake. And for finally, actually, I hope to have Leticia Carvalho, that's the General Secretary from the International Seabed Authority. She couldn't be here with us, but sent us a video. And the idea is to connect, as we talked here today, about the science that we have, about the legal instruments that we will need, about international collaboration, and when we look at the BBNJ agreement, it's quite important to see that the agreement always mentions that do not undermine any other institution or other agreements and other arrangements that when we see at the ocean that really exist. And the CBID authority is one of them, working with tech transfer, working on database and so on. And then I asked it to Leticia to share with us what there is a capacity under the umbrella of the CBID authority that could be used for the BBNJ and not undermining any circumstances. So please, if you could put the video.
Distinguished colleagues,
For us, I don't, if you need anything from us, but just 1 minute? Okay, we'll wait. There's no problem. So we are right on time, and we're supposed to end at 6 p.m. As I mentioned, I'm quite questions, but we are close to keep on time. And I know that everyone's wants to be free and have some drinks, maybe. After
distinguished
that,
colleagues, representatives of the scientific community, government officials, and civil society partners, queridos amigos, it is a profound honor to address you today at this symposium during dedicated discussions on Part 5 of the BBNJ Agreement, which addresses capacity building and the transfer of marine technology. Although joining you by video, I am with you in spirit in my beloved Rio. This city has inspired my journey to becoming an oceanographer and policymaker and instilled my love of the ocean and the environment. The entry into force of the BBNJ Agreement on 17th January 2026 represents a landmark moment for consolidated ocean governance, bringing renewed momentum to our collective efforts to conserve and sustainably use marine biodiversity in areas beyond national jurisdiction. For the International Seabed Authority, ISA, this moment is both historic and practical. Since its establishment under UNCLOS in 1994, the ISA has organized and controlled mineral-related activities in the area, with the objective of regulating the sustainable use of its mineral resources and ensuring the effective protection of the marine environment. Over the past 3 decades, ISA has accumulated significant operational experience in data. This work spans marine scientific research through initiatives such as Deep Data Platform, the Deep Sea Biobank, and the Sustainable Seabed Knowledge Initiative, just to name a few. It also includes developing environmental management plans and a range of capacity development actions. Among these are programs that provide hands-on technical experience through the Contractors Training Program, as well as global scientific collaboration supported by the ISA Partnership Trust Fund. Taken together, these efforts form a structured approach to capacity building. This framework is designed to respond to the evolving needs of our member states through regular needs assessments. It supports multiple pathways to close critical gaps in scientific data and promotes the equitable transfer of marine knowledge and skills, while also advancing gender parity and inclusivity. Today, we see a clear opportunity to translate that experience into a foundation for mutually reinforcing cooperation with the BBNJ framework. The BBNJ agreement attaches great importance to capacity building and the transfer of marine technology to achieve its objectives. Although our areas of emphasis differ, the capacity to be built and the marine technology to be transferred through the ISA and BBNJ system are, to a large extent, similar in form and substance. The BBNJ agreement requires that its capacity building and the transfer of marine technology shall build upon, rather than duplicate, existing programs under relevant instruments, frameworks, and bodies. Dear friends, findings from a recent workshop among delegations in New York revealed a strong convergence among member states on 3 key points. First, the ISA's exclusive mandate under UNCLOS and the 1994 implementing agreement must continue to be fully upheld. Second, future BBNJ institutions will need to coordinate closely and from the outset with the ISA to avoid fragmentation. And third, scientific integrity, structured cooperation, and transparency will be essential as the BBNJ agreement moves into its implementation phase. This complementarity and coherence between ISA and BBNJ will be further discussed during our council meeting this month. However, the success of BBNJ is absolutely dependent upon the success of ISA. After all, it will be impossible to manage and protect the water column from surface to shallows to deep sea bed if the deep sea bed remains unprotected through not having rules and regulations. A cornerstone of our collective progress must be the not undermining principle embedded in BBNJ. This is more than a legal nuance. It is a foundational principle that ensures that the BBNJ agreement supports, rather than overrides, weakens or conflicts with existing legal frameworks and the established mandates of bodies like the ISA. In practice, our goal is to move beyond coexistence towards optimizing complementarity. Let me share with you a couple of examples. The ISA Deep Sea Biobank is a flagship initiative designed to facilitate collaboration between the ISA and BBNJ agreement. For instance, ISA is in a unique position to facilitate research and capacity building activities on the deep sea biological resources at the global scale. Over 175,000 biological and 510,000 geochemical samples have been collected by ISA contractors to date, with more collected annually for various studies. Facilitating access to such samples is a significant contribution to narrowing the capacity gap, given the resources and the expertise required to conduct deep-sea research. Over the years, we have developed a contractors training program for scientists, engineers, and regulators. We have facilitated access to technical expertise and scientific data for member states. I'm delighted that in 2024-25, contractors provided more than 80 training opportunities for nationals of developing states, nearly half for women. Over 1,000 individuals have been trained since 1994. And through our specialized capacity building centers of excellence, including ISA China and Egypt Joint Training and Research Centers, and the newly inaugurated African Academy for Deep Sea Diplomacy, we are advancing knowledge of law and science in the Global South in truly meaningful ways. These experiences provide valuable insights into the BBNJ process. Complementarity between ISA and BBNJ will not be a static goal. It is an ongoing, adaptive process that requires dialogue, coordination, and mutual learning. And this brings me to a point that is very close to my heart, both as Secretary General and as a Brazilian. Brazil has long been a titan of maritime diplomacy. From the earliest negotiations of UNCLOS to the halls of this very Museum of Tomorrow, Brazil has consistently championed the ocean as our shared heritage. Today, as we discuss Part 5, I see a unique opportunity for Brazil to lead once again. This is why institutional coherence is so vital. As the Ministry of Science, Technology, and Innovation leads the charge in crafting national policies, we must ensure that science, diplomacy, and innovation are integrated seamlessly. We must avoid the trap of fragmented or overlapping bureaucracies. By building these bridges at home, Brazil can set the gold standard for balancing its sovereign interests with the stewardship of the global commons. By respecting these boundaries and building these bridges, we ensure that consolidated global ocean governance and Brazil's place within it are both efficient and enduring. Dear colleagues, our shared goal is clear: to ensure that ocean resources, from surface to seabed, are conserved and sustainably used for the benefit of all humankind, now and for future generations. At a moment when the integrity of ocean governance is under challenge, let me conclude by extending my warmest congratulations on the entry into force of the BBNJ agreement. The ISA is ready to work closely with Brazil and other member states and all relevant partners to achieve the full potential of Part 5. By combining our collective experience, innovation, and a shared commitment to sustainability, we can make the oceans healthier, more resilient, and more equitable for generations to come. Thank you. Muito obrigada.
I'm always impressed with Leticia speaking. She's amazing. And now I think we can open the floor for questions. If you have them, we're quite open to answer. And if you're not, we can end off after a time, but yes, it's open. He's coming to you.
Thank you. It's a try.
Sorry, that's much better. Yeah. Thank you. It was great to hear all the presentations and the setup of this very interesting issue, which deals with capacity. I found that the panel brought in very interesting insights into the questions of technology, into products, into data, and all the different aspects of legal binding within the treaty. But I missed one thing that Leticia actually talked about, a little bit about it, but I missed the human component. Do we have the human resources, the capacity in human resources to tackle all the issues that the agreement will require? That's a question that I would like to address. Thank you.
During the presentations, I was wondering that, first of all, I guess that every country has something to observe and something to share. And I was thinking about an analogy that this Part 5 is like a backstage of the work of the organization of Olympic game or international symposium that I'm sure that Andre drove Andre really crazy. That we need time to work. We need to observe previous knowledge. And most of all, without a strong and efficient local supply chain, we will not have a successful event. So we need the catering guys, the internet guys, everybody, and technology to do so I guess it's product, service, and human.
Okay, let's come back to the annoying part. Thank you for your question. And I think it's a bit tricky when you think about human resources, but I think that BBNJ already has some answers for us. So when I proposed that this kind of a framework, it's more related to technology transfer, but When you look at the marine technology concept, you can extract some ideas also related to capacity building and capacity development, and to see that we're not only ensuring the technology transfer, but also the transfer of knowledge. And if we come back a little bit in the negotiations, one of the main concerns, especially from developing states, were for them were how we can ensure also that this component of developing some human resources, like human aspect, can, you know, like how we can highlight this. And I think like one of legal foundation that we can kind of, you know, like raise and say, okay, we have this, is like Article 44, if I'm not wrong, paragraph 1, that we can have some substantive elements about what is capacity building. And there we have the human component. And especially because like sometimes, and because of that, I said that I was a bit mean when I say like, but how we can do that, it's sometimes you just look at to part 5 and capacity building and tech transfer and talk about like equipments and facilities and so on, but how we can operate all of that. So if you think Article 1 and Article 44, definitely when we touch upon Part 5, the human component is there, very vivid and very solid. It's just, we just need to maybe do a kind of like a rethinking about what this means to the implementation. And last point, sorry for that. It's also, okay, I just forgot like what I would say. I can come back, thank you.
It's not my fault. We still have 3 minutes. I don't know if our colleagues online could add, but anyway, it's a good question, and I think that's everything relies on. If you don't have the human component, you don't have everything else. So I'm still very esperançoso, hopeful on that, and I see a lot of cooperation going on, and specifically between the countries, and I think that BBNJ it's a milestone, a huge change of what when we were talking about international collaboration and tech transfer. Our time. One last question. I have been told I had 5 minutes, but now it's only 2. So it's one last question, and I will not choose. I don't know who. Okay, we already have. So please.
Okay. Thank you for the opportunity. So my name is Fabiana. I am a researcher at the Alto-Mar at the Unifesp, and I just want to talk about mainly what Julia was talking about, the database. Is it bad, the sound? Is it okay?
It's a little bit, I'm listening.
So it's like about so I work with data, I work with like integrating different type of data. And one thing that we always discuss in my field is that we don't need more database. We need to really make this database to talk to each other, because every time that an initiative starts, it comes with a new database, and usually they don't have resource to make this database comprehensive and good. So one thing that we always think is that maybe it should need like some sort of efforts to finance existing database and make this kind of collaboration, because database, they cost a lot of money to keep, like for the technological and also the human capacity. So maybe there should be some ways to finance it and improve, because the ones that we have right now, sometimes they are not enough for different type of data, and they don't communicate with other type of data. So I think this capacity should maybe invest in some improvement rather than creating new ones. Maybe I'm repetitive or maybe I'm not clear. I hope so. Thank you.
Thank you for the question, and I totally agree with you. I think that specifically talking from Ministry of Science and Technology, it's always a lot of money to create a new database. But what we have is not interoperable. And not only in the national level, but also when you do international collaboration, the data even don't talk. So to learn from the databases from ISA, as Leticia was mentioned, and I know that INPO already has been working so hard to have a database connected. We always have a talk with the Navy to understand how the BNDO could connect and to be more easily to the science. So the work is specifically in that way. Maybe not always with the result fast as we want, but we are working on that way. That's okay. I'm pretty sure that the panelists will be open to another questions if needed, and I will I need to thank so much for INPO for organizing this event, to open this floor to us, to the Mara that's organizing, and to the panelists. Thank you so much for the speakers. Thank you who are online watching us, and thank you for the audience by the end of the day still listening to us. Thank you so much.
Hey, thank you so much, Leandro, and to all your panelists. That was a great thing. And we are still going, and it's like 6:05. Great interaction, great engagement, even at this late stage. Thank you so much. So that's the end of day 2, everybody. I'm so sad. 1 day left of the 3rd BBNJ Symposium. Unbelievable. I want to thank everybody who has participated today, right from our opening keynote through all the panels and our satellite events. We will be back here tomorrow morning. Registration 8:30 open as normal, and then we have Margaret Leinen giving our keynote presentation at 9 o'clock, and then we have a full day, 3 more panels, closing remarks, and 4 more satellite events. Now, we do have, one of the reasons I'm a little bit twitchy is that we have a hard deadline with our host, the Museum of Tomorrow today, because they've opened especially for us. So if I could ask you to make sure that you leave the building promptly, and if you're here at 6:30, I'm going to physically throw you out. So anyway, thank you so much, everyone. See you tomorrow.